Hello, it's Randi Rhodes. Here's a clip from our show, and go to randirhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.
Mary had a little man.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe it.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
So it was just me and Al backstage, and he had his little props for the rest of his show, for the rest of his little skits by himself. And he's like, well, we need to practice the kissing scene. And I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. And I just sort of blew him off because I didn't, like, we don't need to practice the kissing scene. It's just a quick little thing, you know. And then he persisted, and he's like, no, we really need to practice the kissing scene. And okay, Al, you just turn your head right, I'll turn my head right, we got this, you know, whatever. And he kept persisting, and I'm like, Al, this isn't SNL, we're not really gonna kiss, so we don't really have to practice. And he just kept persisting, and it just reminded me of like the Harvey Weinstein tape that you heard the girl when she was wired up for the New York, the NYPD, and he's just persistent and badgering and just relentless, you know? And so I was just like, okay, fine, just so he would shut up, you know? And he just sort of came at me, and we did the line, and he came at me, and before you even know it, I mean, you kind of get close, and he just put his hand on the back of my head, and he mashed his face against, I mean, it happened so fast, and he just mashed his lips against my face, and he stuck his tongue in my mouth so fast. And all I can remember is that his lips were really wet, and it was slimy. In my mind, I called him fish lips the rest of the trip because that's just what it reminded me of. I don't know why. And he stuck his tongue down my mouth, and I remember I pushed him off with my hands. And I just remember I almost punched him, so because every time I see him now, like my hands clench into fists, and I'm sure that's probably why. And I said, if you ever do that to me again, I'm not going to be so nice about it the second time. And I just walked out away from him, and I walked out, and I just wanted to find a bathroom, and I just wanted to rinse my mouth out because I was just disgusted, you know. It was just one of those, I don't know, I was violated. I just felt like, you know, he betrayed my trust, and it obviously that is not what I wanted, and I felt like he wrote that just to get that piece in because he knew he wasn't going to get it on stage, and that was why he was badgering me to do it then when we were alone, because that's what he wanted. And then, you know, 5 minutes later, we had to go out on stage. I had to be an actress, you know, I had to go out on stage with this guy who just did this to me 5 minutes before and act like he's my best friend and Al Franken, ladies and gentlemen, and this is the greatest thing ever, and do our lines, and trust me, he didn't even get close to my face when we had to come in for the kissing scene. And I mean, look, I was afraid to speak out 11 years ago. I wanted to say something, and there were people around me who said, oh my God, you will get annihilated and you will never work in this town again. And I was afraid of that. I really was afraid of that. You know, I was working at the Best Damn Sports Show. I was working at Fox Sports. I mean, I had a good career, and I thought, you know what, if I come out and speak out then, I probably would get fired or would just get phased out. And I was afraid of that, you know, and I'm not afraid of that anymore. I mean, could it still happen? Sure, possibly, but you know, I'm a lot more secure and you know, myself, my career at this age now, and I really do think the tide has turned.
So that's Leanne Tweeden, and she is alleging that Al Franken inappropriately groped her and was acting in a sexually predatory way towards her when they were doing a USO tour in Afghanistan in 2006. Now, some of you might know that in 2006, I worked with Al Franken at Air America, and his show was right before our show. And so we were always in the same building together at the same time each and every single weekday for about 4 or 5 years. And so I know Al as a coworker. I've been to Al's house. I know Al's wife, Franny, who is just one of the most incredibly kind people. I know Al's children. And I got to say that, you know, if she says this, then she needs to be believed. But it is my experience with Al Franken, and some of you know that Al and I have had not the greatest friendship in the history of friendships, and but I always say I love his wife, Franny. I think she's an amazing person. But I have never known or seen or observed or noticed or heard from any of my female coworkers at Air America, and there were tons and tons of girls there. It was one of the most inclusive, places in broadcasting I ever worked, as far as, women and men, because most of my career was working, 5 guys and a girl, with a male general manager who was in charge of the salespeople and a male program director who was in charge of the content, the broadcasters, the talent, as they call us, condescendingly, and a male, in charge of the cluster, and very few women bosses, very few. For a very, very, very long time, I was like the only girl, and I have worked with predators. I could do the Me Too thing. I really could, but I don't do it because there's too many stories, and Twitter doesn't, even with the new characters that you're allowed to, and there just wouldn't be enough time to tweet out all these freaking stories, okay, of predatorial men that have, crossed my path in my life, from the time I was a young DJ to, Air America, and something that happened in a freaking stairwell. I've told Scotty and Brett about this, because we're talking all the time now, because they're young guys and they want to assess their lives, and they want to figure out if they've ever done anything that a woman might have, looked at askance, or was I wrong if I did this, and I always say to them, if you have to ask if you're wrong, you probably shouldn't do it. You probably shouldn't do it. But the intent is what I also talk to them about. When you do if you hug a woman at work or something like that, or if you tell a woman she looks nice today, is the intent sleazy and sexual? Is it predatorial? Are you in a position of power over this woman? Are you making her feel obligated to you in some way? You know what I mean? There are definite, obvious lines, right? Well, I got to tell you this, just up front, and from my own experience, I have never, ever, ever observed Al Franken or heard another woman that I worked with at Air America come to me as a person in power, because I had a really, 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 really popular show. And of course, Al was the big star, and Janine Garofalo was a big star, and I was just the radio girl. And I was in between those two shows, but our show became the breakout show. Our show became the show, okay? And so women who would have a problem with somebody, in the company would come to me, could come to me, and understood that was, my door was open. I have never heard one complaint about Al Franken being predatorial or sexually inappropriate. I will say this, Al Franken is a lip kisser. You probably know some people in your life that, most people, like, if you're on hugging terms with somebody, you hug them. And then if you're like, on kissing terms, like if you go to somebody's house, you may kiss them and their husband, or, whatever, usually on the cheek. I will say Al Franken is a lip kisser. He does come directly for the lips. So I understand what she's saying, that he kissed her on the lips. I get, because he does do that. He really does do that. And the fish lips comment, the way she thought about him, I can't say, I didn't think that at times. But I have never gotten the intent that it was predatory. I never got the intent that it was sexual in any way. I never got the impression that he was doing this maliciously or to intimidate me. Or there were, other things that were floating around, as far as business things and, PR things and other things, like having 10 writers on his staff when we had none. You know what I'm saying? There were other issues, but never a sexual issue. Never came up. Never heard that from another woman. Never heard that from, there were plenty of young girls who worked in booking. There were plenty of young writers. He had a co-host named Catherine. Never heard anything like that about him. Ever, never, ever, never saw anything like that from him. Never experienced that feeling of, I'm lording my power over you, or this is sexual, or I'm predatory. Never, never, ever once. have I ever felt that from him. However, Leanne Tweeden is now accusing Al Franken of forcibly kissing and groping her. And Al Franken has responded. And this is what he said. First of all, I want you to know he tweeted out right away. I was watching this because I thought, oh no. This has got to be because he bested Jeff Sessions. This has got to be because he has created a prosecutable crime of perjury for the Attorney General of the United States. And, I don't know who this girl is. I never met her. I didn't know, when Al Franken went on these USO tours, I didn't go on these USO tours. I would have loved to have gone, to tell you the truth. But I wasn't asked. I wasn't, offered or invited. I definitely would have said yes. I would have loved the experience. I am ex-Air Force. I would have, in a heartbeat, gone. But this is Al Franken's response. The first tweet he tweeted was to Mitch McConnell. And he said, let's investigate this. Meaning, let's investigate me. And then he sent out a statement. It's in Politico. And he said, there is a photo of Leanne on the I guess they're on a C-17, a cargo plane. I worked on C-141, so, but the C-17 is also a cargo plane, and she's, sleeping, and Al is posing in front. She has full body armor on. Okay, she's got a full. There it is. Thank you. She's got a full flak jacket on. Okay, she's got a Kevlar helmet on because that is how you have to dress in a war zone if you're leaving or arriving by air. And so she's dressed like that. She's sleeping. And he is that picture is creepy. Okay. I got to say, but the goofy look on his face tells me that is Al. Do you know what I'm saying? That Al was doing it to be funny. So here's what his response was. He said, as to this photo, it was clearly intended to be funny, but wasn't. I shouldn't have done it. And then he said, the first thing I want to do is apologize to Leanne, to everyone else who was part of the tour, to everyone who has worked for me, to everyone I represent, and to everyone who counts on me to be an ally and a supporter and a champion of women. There's more I want to say, but the first and most important thing, and if it's the only thing you care to hear, that's fine. I'm sorry. I respect women. I don't respect men who don't. And the fact that my own actions have given people a good reason to doubt that makes me feel ashamed. But I want to say something else, too. Over the last few months, all of us, including especially men who respect women, have been forced to take a good hard look at our own actions, which is what my staff is doing with me. They are asking me a lot of, questions about their behavior, whether or not women view this as appropriate, inappropriate. I don't think I ever did, but what do you think of this? Jessica has been calling me and asking me, can I tell her where the line is? This is the conversation in America right now. Anyway, he says, but I want to say something else, too. Over the last few months, all of us, including especially men who respect women, have been forced to take a good hard look at our own actions and think, perhaps shamefully, for the first time, about how these actions have affected women. For instance, that picture. I don't know what was in my head when I took that picture, and it doesn't matter. There is no excuse. I look at it now, and I feel disgusted with myself. You can put the picture back up. Thank you. It wasn't funny. It's completely inappropriate. It's obvious how Leanne would feel violated by that picture. And what's more, I can see how millions of other women would feel violated by it. Women who have had similar experiences in their own lives, women who fear having those experiences, women who look up to me, women who have counted on me. Coming from the world of comedy, I've told and written a lot of jokes that I once thought were funny, but later came to realize they were just plain offensive. But the intentions behind my actions aren't the point at all. It's the impact these jokes had on others that matter. And I'm sorry it's taken me so long to come to terms with that. While I don't remember the rehearsal for the skit, as Leanne describes, as Leanne does, I understand why we need to listen to and believe women's experiences. I am asking that an ethics investigation be undertaken, and I will gladly cooperate. And the truth is, what people think of me in light of this is far less important than what people think of women who continue to come forward and tell their stories. They deserve to be heard and believed. And they deserve to know that I am their ally and supporter. I have let them down and am committed to making it up to them. Now, for people who say, oh, I've been listening to you a long time. I remember you from Air America. You know that Al and I went at each other pretty good. And this is not because I'm not saying that I never saw Al be inappropriate with a woman because I love Al Franken and I'm saying this because I never saw Al Franken be inappropriate with any woman at any time when we were working together. He was never inappropriate to me. He does kiss you on the lips instead of on the cheek, and maybe he ought to stop doing that because we did make fun of him a lot for that. And for those of you who could still access some of those old shows, you will hear me say that. And I also mocked the way he walks and a whole lot of other crap about him, but he is not a sexual predator. Go to RandiRhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.